Hello everyone, welcome to AWO Architect and Woman. This is a place of inspiration and motivation for architects, for women, but not just for them, for everyone. How we do that? We do that through stories, live projects of women and architects. And today, to me, is a very special day because I will have an interview with an architect and a woman, Gisue Hariri from Hariri and Hariri Architecture in New York. She's an Iranian-born architect, but she's running her firm with her sister in New York. And now I'm gonna try. I can see her, and now I'm gonna try to invite her. Let's wait just a little bit. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hi, greetings from New York.
Hello, how are you? Welcome to Italy.
Thank you. I am dying to come to Italy. If this
yes.
pandemic will be finished.
Yes. I hope you can come to Italy as soon as possible. So maybe I can see you in person.
I certainly hope so.
How are you? So in this strange time, how are the things there in New York?
It is so surreal. I just, it's taken 3 months now. We are in quarantine and, working from home. And, but slowly it's getting better. And we are confident that soon, hopefully with, some measures of social distancing and wearing masks and so on, we'll be able to, use more of public spaces, or at least go to our studios and offices and work collectively. Right now, we are all like Italy in different parts in our homes, connecting via internet.
Mm-hmm.
So, I couldn't put my head around, what happened, because none of us even imagined that something like this will happen. I personally have gone through a revolution in my country. I have gone through economic downturns and recessions almost every 8 to 10 years in the United States. But, I never thought we're going to get to a point that something that is so unknown and, it's part of nature is going to come and tell us that we need to readjust and reevaluate our life. I now begin to really think more like this is a universal rebalancing of all the negative energy, all the destruction of environment that we have made, greed, capitalism should not be about greed, but about freedom, equality, and creativity. So it just somehow felt that in the past, decades, we've gone in that route. We all want more and many more.
Mm-hmm.
And, human suffering. All the wars in Middle East and what you see, disasters that we have confronted because of climate change and not doing anything about it. Poverty, homelessness. I mean, I can go on and on. Like, somehow it feels to me that there is this universal wisdom somewhere saying, stop, everyone. We need to reevaluate. We need to step back and understand what is important in life. And being an optimist and a very hopeful architect, I truly believe we all, as a global community and a society, will come out of this stronger and better, kinder, and more mindful. Mindfulness is something, less waste and less much more positive. A lot of love. I see like people sending love. I send you my love.
Yeah, I see a lot of hearts
I
here.
love it. Yes.
For
So
you.
we were preparing to come to Venice, which is a magical city to me.
Mm-hmm.
Among all the magical cities in Italy. I mean, Italy is a very special place because of its history and its history of architecture, and it's kind of where we begin as architects. Um, but unfortunately, because the biennial, the architecture biennial is been postponed, and then the European Cultural Center, who were kind enough to invite us, ECC have all postponed now the architecture exhibition for next year. So now we have to be very patient and wait for
Yes,
a
and we hope
year
for
to be
next
able.
year we are going to be able to go to the biennial,
Right,
architectural biennial as well, because
right.
it's something we cannot miss here in Italy. It's
Yeah.
a very important event, so I hope
But
so.
everybody's good over there. It seems like Italy is
Yes,
opening up
yes.
now slowly.
My family and the people I know is all right. Just my grandmother, she had a rough time, but now she's okay. So, of
Thank
course,
God.
Italy is suffering like all the world, but we are now we are better. So we hope the situation is gonna be better, and we hope what you said. We hope things are gonna be better in a lot of ways. When this is gonna be over. So
I think so.
let's
I
hope
think so
so.
too. Let's
Okay,
pray. Yes.
now I'm gonna try to ask you something more about architecture and more about what we are doing as as work. So I would like to ask you, where does your passion for architecture come from? Why did you choose to be an architect? Talking about architecture.
I chose to become an architect at age 12. I'm not sure if I even knew what architecture was and what was, waiting for me. But I think it was this experience of life, experience of beautiful architecture that was surrounding me that made me think I can make life better, similar to those who've done it in the past. So just I think at an age that everybody asks you what do you want to become and what do you want to study, because we had to make a choice when you go to high school. I said architecture, and they said, okay, you have to study mathematics. So I said, okay, I'm gonna study mathematics, without really knowing. But our both my sister and myself, our earlier childhood experience is from the southern part of Iran, which my father was an engineer in the oil company, um, far into the deserts where obviously all the oil fields are. And I think the passion is because we didn't have much around us. There was no town, there were no museums, hardly, you had to go to almost another town to do shopping. The passion and our experience is from the desert. The desert is a very vast, space, and it's both isolating but also nurturing. So we were far away from everything and everyone, but at the same time, it allowed us to have our imagination develop and grow. We had to often make our own toys. We had to make up our own games. We had to, in a way, invent the world that we wanted to have or to live in. So from very early on, I think this blankness, this blank canvas allowed us to develop our own ideas about what is the place we like to have or a town we like to live in, and so on and so forth. And I tell you, the desert, strips everything away because it's a very harsh climate. It almost is very minimal. It's one vast thing. It's the horizon, it's the earth, and it's the sky. Somehow, maybe far away, there are mountains and, formations. But
It's
at the
like
same
white,
time,
it's like a white sheet in a
it's a
way,
white sheet. It's a canvas. It's a white canvas. So what is fascinating is at the same time that the climate, it's hot and it's very severe and nights are cold and daytime the sun is very harsh on you. But at the same time, it's very sensual. It's very, in a way, feminine. It's very, the undulating sand dunes and curvilinear formations that are constantly with the wind are being formed and moved and changed. It leaves an impact, I think, on you. And, that's where I think, going back, it started all of, the work that we do. In a way, going back to the essence of things, understanding our environment, our climate, and, trying to survive it. As women also, I think desert for me is a metaphor for women. We have always been marginalized and have had harsh environment to survive in for many decades now, for me. Mm-hmm. And because of that, I think the result is that in a way, women are going to be the most creative force today. It's everybody's pushing you, so you become stronger, and you learn how to live in a society that has been, in a way, unjust. And so I'm very hopeful. I think it's very exciting, for the future for women architects.
Okay, and I noticed that your work is very multidisciplinary. You work at different scales, from master plans to architecture to furnitures to jewelry. And I would like to know, which one are you enjoying most?
Yeah, we are pretty multidisciplinary. I think because the way we practice architecture, it's the same thinking that connects everything, the world. As I said, when you're in the middle of nowhere, you try to create everything. If you have a game and you don't have toys, the game doesn't work. If you have a game and toys, then you need a larger environment to. So we have learned to kind of create everything that becomes part of one another, and not to create boundaries and distinctions between one to the other. And in fact, I think at the earlier on in universities, for us was very difficult to understand why there is such a distinction between urban design and architecture, between architecture exterior and interior, between commercial architecture and residential architecture. It's all chopped up and divided, and our brain doesn't work that way. We see it all together. I mean, when you sit down to create something, from nothing, then you're thinking about all the parts and all its elements. So the jewel, and a lot of the architects who have inspired us have had that kind of thinking. Frank Lloyd Wright, for example, he did everything. He did furniture, he did lighting, he did accessories, for his clients. Interiors were very rich and always designed by him. Exterior was always part of the fabric of what he was building from, whether it was nature, then this idea of organic architecture and how architecture and nature come together. And so on. And Corbu, the same. I mean, he was a master planner, but he was a master planner that also had furniture made. He was an artist. We always analyze his paintings and how it related to the cubism and modernism and, space in a way. And Veralto, same, beautiful organic architecture that dealt with materiality, that was very nature oriented, but at the same time, I have few of his vases, so he did everything. So this kind of architects as visionaries that don't do one thing or one part of the creative world, but they structure their philosophy and mind so everything becomes part of one another. And, you can do it basically from one scale to another, was something that was very appealing to us. The most exciting part was when we were invited to do jewelry. Okay, so furniture and all is the territory of architects. But jewelry, being women, we thought jewelry should be our territory, but most jewelry is made by men, designers and artists. And so it was a challenge. It was very exciting. And, we told everyone and told ourselves all the buildings and architecture that they don't build because, it's always too difficult. You can't build this and all of that. We're going to make into jewelry and wear it. So this piece of jewelry that I have,
yes,
we designed for, the Swarovski.
The Swarovski collection, yes. The Kryptonite collection, isn't it?
It's a beautiful, and it was amazing because they allowed us to actually design our own material, our own crystal. Their crystals are all very perfect and diamond-like and, tries to be like, precious stones. And we said, no, crystals are forever, have been, where health comes from, and you connect to create positive energy and have their own world. And why don't we design our own? And they allowed us. And so it was beautiful. We did a whole collection. We loved them. But in this particular collection, we wanted the jewelry to be so large, not only be an art or architecture that you wear, but also make it large enough that gives power to women. So you consciously wear it knowing you have it. So
like wearing architecture.
Yes, it's you're surrounded by architecture. You wear it, you sleep with it.
Okay. Yeah. Now I would like to ask you, at the moment, together with your sister, you are considered one of the greatest architecture firms in the American scene. How do you combine this work you're doing in architecture with your private life?
It's I think this is the big question that most women architects have, and for us being two partners that are both women is equally difficult. How the balance is very important. We have a very interesting situation in a sense that we are two sisters, and being two sisters, we have not only been very harsh critic of one another because we allow it, but at the same time, we also have been the most supporting, friends of each other. And so that helped. It helps when you have women partners in the field of architecture, because they have a much more of an understanding of the emotional bond that you have with your family, with your children. And so in that sense, I'm a lucky architect that I work with my sister. But my hope is that women around the world will create sisterhoods in order to be able to help one another to have this balance. The reason for it is I think both are very important. There was a myth when I was in college at Cornell University that architects cannot be married. Successful architects have to be single, male stars. And when you look back, I'm not sure again about any of them. Frank Lloyd Wright obviously had many wives, but he ignored his children. He was not a family man, went after his passion. Corbu, I don't know, died without leaving anything behind. So all the people that we admired, most of the architects, had, in a way, no connection to the family. And I feel as an architect, if you don't understand the family and family structure, especially from where I come from, and I think Italy is the same way, it's the old cultures. The basis of architecture is the family unit. Then you don't know what you're practicing. Then you are just, following some techniques and making some boxes to put people in. You have to understand the emotional relationship, the psychological wiring of families, of mothers, of children, and what is necessary. And so in that sense, we have made our studio become our home, and our home to become our studio. It's a continuation of life. Because, I told you at the beginning, I didn't know what architecture was. And later on, I understood architecture is about living, is about life. It's about seeing, is about experiencing. And so you can't divide. You can't say, okay, now I am an architect, and then turn it off, and now you become a mom. You become, it's the boundaries are very blurred. Do you need help as an architect? Yes. Architects are not individuals, and we have tried to show that there are two Hariris. It's never single. I mean, even those who have a single name on their architectural firms, they have a lot of help. We may not see them, but it's a whole team of architects and engineers and experts working on projects. So I just thought it's hopeful to bring that forward so people understand that, architecture is never done really by one person. Even if the creative part of it or initial spark of it comes from one person, but for us to experience it and, in a way build it, you have many, many people helping you. And so, we want to make sure we put all these fake news and myths behind. Architects who are great a lot of them are women, a lot of them are mothers, a lot of them are married, and it's possible. It's just we need a village, as Hillary Clinton says, to raise the family, and we need everybody's help to do that. The society needs to be mindful of that.
Thank you. This is just the message we want to spread, really, to everyone.
Good.
So, we were talking about multidisciplinarity. Now I would like to talk about multiculturality, which I see is a great strength in your work. So can I ask you, which are your biggest sources of inspiration between all these cultures I see in your projects?
Oh my God. Being multicultural allows you, I think, to become a bridge between cultures, because you kind of are always an outsider looking towards your next project or the new culture that you are entering in. We have been lucky enough to have a very strong, in a way, history of architecture behind us from the Persian culture, from where we were born. And so that is the root and the basis of how we look at architecture, which is mainly respect, not only for the environment and elements of the nature, such as water, fire, earth, and wind. And all of it is used in the historic and kind of traditional architecture of Persia. I mean, literally, you have wind catchers or towers that try to catch the air to come in a way, ventilate and cool spaces without use of electricity. This is thousands of years ago. And they're also beautiful because they're very functional. They're not, decorative. Um, but at the same time, you learn then to, because you respect your own culture, you respect other cultures. So our always challenge has been that style doesn't mean anything, fashion of the day doesn't mean anything. Um, you know, one size or one architecture doesn't fit all. Maybe there was a time of globalism that you could get, a brand and repeat it everywhere. But I think, especially now after the pandemic, it is absolutely incorrect in my mind. To make appropriate architecture, I think you need to um, clearly understand um, a culture, its history, its traditions. And I think there is always, in most of the places I have been, a hidden wisdom that maybe has become forgotten because of thousands of years ago there was something there and they didn't see value in it and it changed and so on. But if you understand that poetic essence of that place, I think you can create something pretty amazing. And that has helped us because we come with that kind of point of view that we are a bridge and we are to respect and understand many other cultures, where when we are allowed to go in a way construct something. So I, beside architects that I mentioned that have influenced us and have been visionaries for us, um, later on, especially in United States, um, you know, we have had many also women mentors. I mean, and that is essential for women in all the fields, especially very male dominated fields. I think women need to have role models. You need to look at another architect who's built great projects and say, oh, I can do that. I can become that. When you see it, you can be it. And so for the longest time, I think my feeling is women have been hidden behind successful men. And in fact, there is a saying behind every successful man, there is definitely a woman, and I have seen it. Nowadays, women are in the forefront, and that is very encouraging. And I think that's the first step in engineering fields, in kind of computer science fields, architecture, and so on. But I think the next step would be for women not to have a man behind them, to either have other women or have their main partners be a mix. At the moment, it's a lot of husband and wives. Women are forefront, and men do all the construction, site visits, and whatever they are supposed to do. And so I think we need to change that. The next step would be to have confidence and know we are not only we have a lot to contribute to the field of architecture, but we are sufficient and we are important in terms of our contribution. Gloria Steinem, for example, became a mentor to us. She was not an architect, but the fact that she was an activist for women's rights, and then she was a journalist, so she was actually a professional. She was a writer. Joan of Arc was literally a warrior who saved France and French army in the war with the Brits. I remember at age 10, I wanted to become a Joan of Arc. I wanted to be a rebel and fight all those people, who told me I couldn't be as good or go as far and so on. So I think it's just important. Now I realize how important it was that there was a book. I read about it. I knew about this amazing, strong, courageous woman and so on. And these days, Greta Thunberg, who's climate, I mean, 16-year-old, she is changing the game. She is actually standing up to the president of the United States, on climate change. I love it. So I keep sending her hearts and telling her how much I love her on Instagram. I hope it gets to her. Greta, you are amazing. Whenever you need an army, I'm going to come behind you and fight for you. So that's how I think this kind of mentorship is important. I think also women, because we are, in my mind, we are wired to be multitaskers. We can do many things at the same time, and therefore possibility of being more inventive and inventive products coming from women, I think, is also more. So we just need to be able to go forward a step and get enough help to be able to reach that. Every time I read, one of our gurus is Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was never trained as an architect or as a designer, but his imagination and inventiveness in a way changed the way we live, changed the world. And all he wanted to do was bring art and sciences back together, bring technology and kind of beauty together. So it's not one or the other. And so I think multiculturalism for me is that way. You bring things together and create something that is greater by tapping into its essence of each culture.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have two daughters, and when they are gonna understand better English, I want to show them this video.
Thank you so much.
This is what they need to hear, I think.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I think already what you're doing is you are an example to your daughters, because you have started a magazine and this, kind of a Instagram account that is basically going out of its way to find women who have something to say. There are a lot of women around, but I think it's important to find those who have been around and have been, fighting for women's rights and bring them to the foreground. Architecture to me is only one part of life. Life in general is bigger. And until the time that there is equality, equity, and, in a way, respect for everyone, including women, it's just, we need to go on with everything as a total kind of philosophical way that we approach. So I have also two daughters.
Okay.
And they are fabulous. And, they always tell me, Mom, we're going to follow you. None of them want to be an architect, though. So that's good. I think they see how much hard work it is and how difficult it is in this life, and I don't know why, really. I don't know why. It's just people get every field gets so satisfied and comfortable with what they have or what they know. And it's always hard when someone comes and questions all the rules and regulations. And I keep telling everyone, everything we have known, even in terms of science, later on was proven wrong and it changed. So that you need to constantly ask questions. as opposed to constantly try to find, a way to design a solution. It's about asking the right questions, I think.
Okay. Now let's show some of your projects. I will start with this one called Jewels of Salzburg in Austria, isn't it? It's a residential complex.
Yes. So this project is very dear to us because it's perhaps the most comprehensive project that we have done that follows this kind of holistic approach that we have towards architecture. And so it's very special. It's 100 apartments. It's $100 million project. It took 9 years to complete it, and it is 6 buildings from ground up. And then we had also some vaults, existing old vaults that we needed to renovate and integrate within the architecture. So the site was beautiful. It's in Austria, and it was a competition that we won. Again, very few women that we knew, women architects, first get invited to competitions. And those are normally invited competitions are for major projects, cultural projects, projects of this nature where, they want to make sure combination of architects, foreign and, local, are great. And so we realized how important it is to actually have, for people to know you, to put you on their list, to be invited to do a competition, because you actually can win. But if they don't know you, so that's why I think your job and the job of the media is so important. We need more books of women architects' work with their philosophy and their designs in it. We need more, I'm gonna follow you, more Instagram interviews so we begin to know these women, creative women, intimately. So somehow we got on the list, and then, it was amazing. So it was a competition that had the most creative, world-known architects invited to it. Sotomura of Portugal,
Yes.
Snohita from Oslo was there, Kengo Kuma we met for the first time from Tokyo, Toshiko Mori at that time,
You won.
was,
yes.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. The look on myself, they all came, and we were not so known, but we wanted this project because we felt for the project. We really studied the site, and so Mozart is from Salzburg. So we wanted to make sure what we create is like music, or at least experience of music, where architecture creates some kind of a meditative experience. And so here you can see all the buildings along this beautiful cliff, or a rock face, we call it. And so, the master planning obviously was done by us. Every building is different from the other one, was designed by us. Not so easy. I think Corbu had it right. You design one and then repeat the same one. We didn't want to do that. We wanted to have every building to have its individual character and relationship to this town and also to this rock face, which was exciting. And then interweaving landscape and this water element that we created, was part of what we designed. And so it's very complete in a way that you don't design one thing, you design the whole community, the whole neighborhood of these buildings. And it definitely was worthwhile, staying along, because 9 years is a very long time. Yeah. But they built them in phases. And so here you can see the water creek. And we just understood how much this natural cliff element belongs to the whole of town, the whole of Salzburg. We couldn't just, give it to this private development. And so we created a path and this water creek where the public and private actually would come or are separated, but at the same time are connected via the natural elements. So nature is woven into the architecture, and architecture is woven back into the nature. Here you can see, how close in a way to the rock we come. Most of the residents love it. We've been there, and for its opening and for its completion, and they tell us we have changed their life. And so, I think we are, in my mind, we are achieving what we started with. What is your goal in terms of doing architecture? Our goal was always to make better life, a better place for people to live and work. And, that's what they tell us here. So I think this is, an achievement. Yeah, I think this is an achievement.
Now I'm gonna change to the image to another project. This one, where, well, my face is on it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, okay.
Okay, I think it's there. So this is a tower, actually. It's an commercial office tower that we have designed in our, own country, Tehran, Iran, and is located in a very dense and commercial urban area. So when we were asked, to participate and work with the developers, in order to make commercial world of Iranian architecture become aware of sustainability and the amount of energy every office building is using for just cooling alone, because it's a very hot area, Tehran, and, made us work very hard and convince them about this idea of using double skin. So most of the inner skin is glass, so you could bring light in and see the views and connect to the street. But at the same time, there is this kind of a bristle or a secondary skin that shields, in a way, the direct sunlight and heat gain. And so it became very exciting for us, because now we could make this building also iconic and use the technologies, to create a pattern. We use the laser cutting technology and kind of bending machines to shape this pattern. And the pattern came from the Persian kind of belief that the intersection of the square and a circle is a geometric manifestation of paradise. So in our mind, this building is in a paradise in the middle of this kind of old urban dense area. And, of course, we abstracted it and, and repeated on two sides. The inner skin and outer skin are about 2.5 meters apart, and in between then we could actually install LED lighting. And the LED lighting at night allows the negative areas, actually, which are the openings, become almost like tile work of light and color, which, we have examples of it in Iran, where they would use color stained glass, and when the sun would hit it, it would create patterns and beautiful colors in the interior of the building. Here is kind of inside out or reversed, because we are trying to give it back to the city as opposed to only to the interior of the building. It also, suddenly something that is void or negative becomes positive, almost like tile work of light, which Iranians, have a tradition of, and we've seen it in their beautiful mosques and traditional. So again, it was an experience, an experiment to engage technology with the understanding of, architecture of Iran, the geometric symbolism of what these Persians meant, and try to do something new and contemporary. You can't create the old stuff, the archways and the domes that had a religious often significant, but you could understand the wisdom of the what were they trying to do and achieve, and bring that and make that into a modern structure. I think it still shines like a piece of jewelry in the middle of town if you see what the context or the context we are in. It's different, but it's different, I think, towards contemporary architecture and modern architecture in Iran. And we are very hopeful that this will send a positive message that because Iranian young architects have been for 40 years in a way disconnected after the revolution from the global world of architecture. And their only connection obviously has been through social media and through internet. I think it's important to understand that doing interesting, and I put it in quotation, cool, sometimes outrageous buildings is not necessary. If you go inward and understand your own culture and see what else now you have, which is a lot of technologies, a lot of materiality, you can in a way construct the poetics of that culture.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to ask you the last question. You already, in a way, answered to that question, but I would like to explain you just a little bit more. Which are the biggest challenges architecture is facing today?
Climate change. I think we need to change our attitude towards the way we build. We need to build sustainable communities, sustainable architecture, and help heal, our planet again. And so it's urgent, I think, for architects to reevaluate and relook at, what they're gonna do next. I'm also very concerned about poverty and homelessness. I think every human being has a right to a home. So we have to deal one way or another with lack of housing, affordable housing, and people living on the streets. And so in that sense, I think architects have a social responsibility, moral responsibility, if they call themselves human beings. And that's what we have started, kind of thinking about and, trying to do projects. I'm beginning to think maybe the way we were going about even creating communities, planning cities, planning neighborhoods, perhaps that needs to be changed. The fact that this pandemic is about breathing, about our lungs, and maybe it's a message. We need to create places and spaces within our communities that allow for clean air, that allow for that community to breathe and be healthy. We need to come up with new maybe building materials that again, allow the building skin to breathe, to bring healthiness into the architecture. We need fresh air. I mean, this is one of the recommendations that they are giving us. So I think the way we deal with architecture definitely is the responsibility that we have from now on. And I'm hoping that there would be conferences and talks that, you know, we can talk about our visions and what we think. One of the things that we have now started doing is, after seeing how many people have been displaced, design communities that maybe that are not fixed, that constantly change. Maybe it's not a grid like an army, you know, in a way, plans that we have started repeating in our cities. Maybe we can come up with a way that we understand systems of nature and work with those systems. And now we have technologies that perhaps allow us to do that, to allow us to keep changing based on what becomes necessary or needed at the time. So it's not like a fixed building in a fixed place, in a fixed pattern. So it's very interesting and challenging. We've been looking at the migration of birds and how they're together, a whole group of them, but they change as they migrate from one place to another. You know, we have also started using kind of technologies where, you know, you put in few elements or data, and then the whole pattern changes. Same units, but the planning. So I'm very excited. There is so much we can do and so much potential to go forward. And I'm hoping that you will get a chance to do all of it.
Okay, thank you. So I think our interview is almost
Done.
arrived to the end.
Oh.
I wanted just to ask you if you can and if you want to say something to future architects, women, but not just women, just as a message to inspire them, just as a motivation.
I think men and women have to support one another to create an environment where both genders, both ideas are equally heard. I think my sisters, rebel architects, have already started on that campaign, hashtag 50%. We need for women to be much more in the front of their fields and make sure 50% of awards that are given out are, at least they consider credible, creative, visionary women. I'm not saying you go around and just, there are a lot of women actually in a lot of fields. 80%, 90% of architecture schools are now, you know, have women students. It's not about that. It's about not exclusively allowing men to be the visionaries, allowing men to become the star architects, allowing men to get all the awards, allowing men to get all the important cultural projects that come up. In order for it to become level field, you need to have both. And we have seen it in the Pritzker Prize this year. 50% of the jury were women. And guess who won the award? Two fabulous women. So it's important. It's definitely important. I think media has a job and responsibility to make sure, you know, on the same caliber as, you know, amazing male architects, they also give their pages and publication to women architects. I think our society is definitely responsible to provide equity, to provide equal work opportunity, to provide equal pay, and awards to women and women architects. I want to say to women, and especially women architects, this is our time and we will change everything. Join me to fight for women's rights, for human rights, for respect for all women around the globe. I am here in New York. Come see me.
Thank you very much. I'm in your army already, if you need me.
Okay, I saw a couple of other people said we are here. Hopefully they can join. Thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you so much.
I think this is wonderful. I have a lot of craziness happening because of this pandemic and my office being all different places, and my mother is not in the best of health. But I said to myself, this is very important. Women have to lift one another up, and women have to speak up. So everybody remember that.
Thank you very much. I think you are a great architect, but as well a beautiful and incredible woman.
Thank you, honey.
Every
Thank
sense.
you.
Thank you very much.
I love you. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Have a nice evening. Bye-bye.
Okay.